The champagne trembled in Nia Williams' hand. Not visibly. Not enough for strangers around her to notice, but enough for her to feel the small betrayal in her fingers. Condensation slid down the glass and gathered at her wrist, cold against warm skin. The gallery hummed with curated elegance. Polite laughter, curated opinions. Curated people pretending art changed their lives when really it only changed their tax brackets. And then she saw him. Richard. 3 years collapsed into a single breath. He stood near a steel sculpture that looked like twisted ribbons of arrogance. His hand rested on the lower back of a blonde woman, wearing a dress that cost more than Nia's yearly rent had once been. The hand placement was deliberate, proprietary, the same way he used to hold Nia when he wanted the world to know she belonged to him, except now she didn't. He had made sure of that. 3 years ago, he had told her she was too ordinary for the life he intended to build. 3 years ago, he had watched her carry boxes alone. 3 years ago, he hadn't offered to help with even one. Her friend had dragged her here tonight, insisting she needed to stop hiding. But survival and hiding often wore the same coat. She turned toward the exit. Nia? Her spine locked. No one here knew her maiden name. Slowly she turned. Richard approached with that same confident stride. Expensive confidence. Inherited confidence. Confidence built on never having to fall far. The blonde followed him like a designer accessory. I thought that was you. His eyes scanned her, not admiring, evaluating, pricing. You look exactly the same. His gaze paused at her red dress. Bold choice. Not a compliment. Richard, she said evenly. Small victories mattered. This is Chloe, he said. My fiancée. We're getting married next month. Hamptons. Chloe extended a hand heavy with a diamond large enough to have its own zip code. Congratulations, Nia replied. The word tasted like chalk. And you? Chloe asked sweetly. Here with someone? Richard laughed before she could answer. No husband yet? Still waiting for your prince. The room seemed to shrink. Nia inhaled slowly. 3 years of rebuilding herself. 3 years of therapy and late shifts and learning she didn't need approval to exist. But old wounds remember their shape. I'm married, she said quietly. Silence. Richard blinked. You're what? She raised her left hand. The platinum band gleamed under gallery lights. Minimal, elegant, impossibly expensive. Chloe's eyebrows lifted. To who? That's private. Richard smirked. Or imaginary. A few nearby conversations slowed. Spectators sensed blood in the air. If you were really married, he continued, he'd be here. You always were a bad liar. Her throat tightened. She turned away before her eyes betrayed her. Outside, Manhattan air hit sharp and cold. Her phone buzzed. Where are you? No greeting. No emoji. Just him. Juno. Her husband. Technically. She typed. Gallery in Chelsea. Leaving now. Reply. Stay there. 5 minutes. Then a call. Who upset you? His voice was low, controlled. Dangerous calm. How did you? Your location stopped moving. Then you exited quickly. Your typing delay increased. Either distress or threat. Which? She closed her eyes. My ex. Silence. What's his name? Richard. Headlights turned the corner. A black SUV stopped directly in front of her. The rear door opened. Juno Park stepped out. Even after 6 months, the reality of him never translated through photos. Tall, composed, dark eyes that processed everything before most people finished blinking. Power worn like a tailored suit, invisible but suffocatingly present. 2 men stepped out beside him. Security. He reached her in seconds. You're shaking. His hand steadied her elbow. Warm. Certain. He's inside. She nodded before she could stop herself. Juno turned toward the gallery, and the atmosphere changed before they even entered. Inside, conversations died mid-sentence. The owner visibly paled. My wife was made uncomfortable. Juno said quietly. The word wife landed like a verdict. Point him out. She swallowed. Gray suit. The crowd parted without instruction. Richard's confidence evaporated as Juno stopped in front of him. You spoke to my wife. Not a question. Richard stammered. We were just catching up. Juno stepped closer. You called her liar. Chloe tried to speak. Failed under one look. Juno took Nia's hand. Fingers interlacing, possessive, unmistakable. Nia is my wife, he said. You will treat her accordingly. Richard nodded rapidly. Good. Juno turned away, guiding her out. Only once inside the SUV did the tension leave his shoulders. Are you hurt? No. He lifted her chin gently. He made you cry. She didn't answer. Juno's gaze darkened. You don't have to face things alone anymore. The words settled deeper than comfort should, and for the first time, she believed him. The city lights stretched endlessly beneath the penthouse windows. Nia had never seen Manhattan from this height before. The world looked quieter from above. Problems reduced to moving dots. Sirens softened into distant echoes. She stood near the glass, arms folded, still processing everything that had happened in the gallery. Behind her, Juno removed his jacket with precise movements and set over the back of a chair. Even relaxed, he carried tension like a second skeleton beneath his skin. You're thinking too loudly, he said calmly. She turned. You track my typing speed. Yes. That's insane. It kept you safe. She opened her mouth to argue, and stopped, because the truth was it had. Juno poured wine into 2 glasses and handed her one. Their fingers brushed. A small contact, but intentional. Our arrangement, she said carefully, was separate lives. It was, he agreed. It no longer is. Her heart stumbled. You don't get to just change terms. I didn't, he said. Tonight did. He stepped closer, voice softer. I watched another man make you feel small. His jaw tightened slightly. I won't allow that again. That's not your decision. It became my decision the day you became my wife. The words should have sounded controlling. Instead, they sounded protective, and that terrified her more. Why me? She asked quietly. Juno was silent for a long moment. Then he gestured to the sofa and sat beside her, closer than necessary, but not touching. 6 months ago, he said, I visited a man in the hospital, one of mine. You were reading to a child in the pediatric ward. She blinked. You saw me? You cried at the sad parts, but kept smiling, so she wouldn't be scared. Nia's chest tightened. I made inquiries. You were being evicted. No family support. 2 jobs. You investigated me? Yes. He didn't apologize. I needed a reason to approach you. Her fingers tightened around the glass. So you offered marriage. I created the situation that made you accept it. Silence. She stared at him. You orchestrated my eviction. Yes. Anger flashed, quick and bright, but strangely hollow, because she remembered the fear she'd felt then and the safety she'd had since. I bought the building the week after. She froze. What? It's yours. Legally transferred the end of the 2-year agreement. She didn't know what to feel anymore. That's manipulation, she whispered. Yes. Why would you admit that? Because you demanded honesty. His hand lifted slowly and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. And because I don't want a contract marriage anymore. Her pulse raced. I want a real one. The words hung heavy in the dim light. I'm not a good man, Nia, he continued quietly. But I will never be a dangerous man to you. She searched his face and found no hesitation. That sounds like obsession. It is. Her breath caught. You should be afraid. She shook her head slowly. I'm not. For the first time, a genuine softness entered his eyes. Stay tonight, he said. No decisions. Just stay. She looked at the city, then back at him. Okay. Relief flickered across his controlled expression. Quick, but real. When he kissed her, it wasn't possession. It was promise. Morning light slid across silk sheets in slow golden lines. Nia woke to warmth at her back and a steady arm draped around her waist. Firm, grounding, unfamiliar but no longer unwelcome. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then memory returned in fragments. The gallery, the confrontation, the penthouse, the confession, the kiss that had not felt like a mistake. Juno shifted slightly behind her. You're awake, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. She turned to face him. In daylight, he looked less untouchable and more human. Faint shadows beneath his eyes, a thin scar crossing his collarbone, another near his ribs. She traced it lightly. This one. Knife, he said simply. And that bullet. She didn't pull her hand away. You're not shocked, he noted. You told me who you are. His gaze studied her carefully, as if waiting for fear to surface. It didn't. A knock came at the door. Juno's expression changed instantly, the softness gone, replaced by precise control. Yes. Sir, a voice said from outside. Information is ready. He looked back at Nia. Your ex. She stiffened. Juno sat up, already fully alert. Richard Davis. Commercial real estate. 3 months behind on payments. Embezzlement likely. Funding his wedding with stolen money. Nia stared. You found all that overnight? I asked the right questions. He paused. I can end him today. Or I can ignore it and let authorities discover it naturally. The choice landed heavy between them. You do either for me? Yes. She thought about the humiliation, the laughter, the years she'd spent rebuilding confidence piece by piece. Then she exhaled slowly. Don't destroy him for revenge, she said. But don't protect him either. A faint approving look crossed Juno's face. Justice, then. He stood and offered her his hand. Get dressed. I want to show you something. An hour later, the car stopped in Brooklyn. Nia frowned. Why are we here? Juno guided her to a familiar building. Her old building. Her steps slowed. Apartment 3C. He unlocked it. Inside, everything had changed. Fresh floors. New paint. Sunlight through restored windows. And her belongings, arranged carefully. Her books. Her art supplies. Even the chipped mug she refused to throw away. She turned slowly toward him. You bought it? Yes. When? After the eviction notice. Her eyes widened. You planned all of it? Yes. Anger rose instinctively, then faded under the evidence of care surrounding her. I needed you to accept my offer, he said quietly. But I also wanted you safe even if you left me after 2 years. She walked through the apartment, touching objects she thought she'd lost forever. You're insane, she whispered. Completely, he agreed. She stopped in front of him. I'm staying at the penthouse, she said. But this is my studio. Relief softened his shoulders almost imperceptibly. Done. He pulled her gently closer. Are you sure? She looked up at him, at the dangerous man who had manipulated her life, but also protected it with relentless precision. Yes, she said softly. I choose you. The first time Nia visited Juno's office, she understood why people feared him. It wasn't the guards. It wasn't the silence. It wasn't even the way everyone stood straighter when he entered. It was control. Every movement inside the building happened with quiet precision, like a heartbeat too steady to be natural. She sat on the leather sofa, while Juno spoke Korean into his phone across the room. His tone remained calm, almost conversational, yet the men around him looked tense. When he ended the call, she asked softly, Bad news? He didn't lie. Someone tested boundaries. Her stomach tightened. And they won't again. She wasn't sure she wanted details. Juno approached and handed her tea instead of wine this time. You shouldn't come here often, he said. My world is not gentle. I chose you, she replied. That includes your world. Something conflicted crossed his face. Pride mixed with worry. Then you need to understand what that means. He gestured toward the windows overlooking the city. Power keeps predators away, he said quietly. But it also attracts them. As if summoned by the words, Minjun entered quickly. Sir, we confirmed it. The SEAL group is probing shipments. Juno's expression hardened instantly. They think marriage softened you, Minjun added carefully, glancing at Nia. Juno's gaze darkened. Good, he said. Let them believe that. Nia felt a chill. Later that night, she woke alone in the penthouse bed. The clock read 3:12 a.m. She found him on the balcony, jacketless in the cold air, speaking quietly into a phone. No civilians harmed, he was saying. Handle it cleanly. He ended the call when he noticed her. You should be asleep. You left, she said simply. He studied her, then admitted, work required presence. She stepped closer. Dangerous work. Yes. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder, despite the chill. You always come back. He didn't hesitate. Always. 2 days later, the news broke. A financial scandal. Arrests across a commercial real estate firm. Richard Davis among them. Nia stared at the screen while sitting in the hospital children's ward. She felt no triumph, only closure. That evening, Juno returned early. It surfaced naturally, he told her, as you wanted. She nodded. Thank you. He brushed her cheek with rare gentleness. I keep my promises. For the first time, she understood the cost of loving a man whose promises reshape reality itself. And still, she didn't step away. 3 weeks later, the hospital room smelled faintly of crayons and disinfectant. Nia sat beside a small bed reading aloud, while a little girl listened with wide, determined eyes. Outside the door, security remained discreetly present. Distant enough not to frighten, close enough to protect. Does the princess win? The child asked. Nia smiled. Yes, but not because she was saved, because she chose her own ending. The girl seemed satisfied and drifted to sleep. When Nia stepped into the hallway, Juno was waiting. Not in a suit this time. Simple dark coat, hands in pockets, yet still unmistakably commanding. You're late, she teased softly. I was ensuring I could leave, he replied. Some matters resist scheduling. They walked outside together. The city glowed warm against the evening sky. Richard accepted a plea deal, he said after a moment. Prison time, but not long. She nodded calmly. I don't hate him anymore. Juno glanced at her. Good. She stopped walking. I would never have survived your world 3 years ago, she admitted. I barely survived mine. He faced her fully, serious. You don't survive it, he said. You change it. Her hand slipped into his coat, holding onto the fabric near his waist. You change mine, she whispered. His expression softened, rare and unguarded. You change my reasons for it. Silence passed between them, comfortable now instead of fragile. Juno, she said carefully, when this started, we had an end date. We no longer do. I know. She took a breath. I want forever, too. For the first time since she'd known him, true relief crossed his face without restraint. He pulled her into his arms, not possessive, not cautious, certain. You already had it, he murmured into her hair. You just hadn't accepted it yet. Months later, the penthouse no longer felt cold. Paintings filled the walls. Books stacked beside immaculate furniture. Life existed where only control once lived. Nia worked at her easel, while Juno reviewed documents nearby. Quiet companionship replaced distance. He looked up. You're smiling. I was thinking, she said, setting the brush down. I used to think being ordinary meant being invisible. He crossed the room toward her. You were never invisible. She leaned into him. You just noticed. His hand rested over hers, steady and warm. I always will. Outside, the city continued endlessly, loud, dangerous, alive. Inside, they had built something stronger than safety. They had built choice. And for the first time, Nia understood the difference between rescue and belonging. She hadn't been saved. She had been seen, and she chose to stay.